The Disaster Artist is the newest film from A24, and this movie is directed by James Franco, and this is, without a doubt, one of my most anticipated movies of the year. This movie tells the true story behind the making of The Room, which is known as the greatest bad movie of all time. It discusses how Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero met, along with how they came up with the idea of this crazy and bizarre film that came to be known as this cult classic. The Room is one of my favorite bad movies of all time. And ever since I've heard about this film, I've been so fascinated with how this movie even got made. Because there really is no other movie on the planet that even comes close to being just how unique that The Room is. So when they announced that they were making a movie about the making of The Room, it instantly became at the top of my radar. And after finally seeing the things that happened behind the scenes and finally getting the details about some of the things that happened behind the camera, it was honestly kind of therapeutic because there's so much unknown about the making of this movie. Where did Tommy get $6 million to make this film? Who knows? The really only true chronicle that we have to go off of about how this movie was made is the Disaster Artist book, which is what this film was adapted from. And if you couldn't tell, I absolutely adored this movie. I loved nearly every single aspect of this film, and this probably is going to be in my top 10 favorite films of 2017. James Franco, in my book, should get an Oscar nomination for this movie because he absolutely crushes it as Tommy Wiseau. His portrayal of him is just so spot on, and the prosthetics that they give him are just so unbelievable. He is completely unrecognizable in this movie. Fun fact, actually, but when Greg Sestero was writing this book, he stated that Tommy approached him and said that if this book was ever adapted into a movie at all, there are only two actors that could properly portray him, and that was Johnny Depp and James Franco. And James Franco's brother, Dave Franco, portrays Greg Sestero in this film, and he did such a fantastic job. It was so great to see him play off of his brother in this movie, which is the first collaboration that they've had between the two of them. This is by far the best work I've seen from him, and I hope that they continue to work with each other because they're obviously a winning combination. And I did have a worry going into this movie, actually, that it was just going to be 2 hours of making fun of Tommy Wiseau and the weird Frankenstein of a movie that is The Room. Because people have been doing that for nearly 10 years. I don't need a feature film highlighting the issues of The Room. I know the problems with that movie. And it probably would just come off as uninspired and frankly pretty mean-spirited. But thankfully, The Disaster Artist is anything but that. It's completely a love letter to not only the fans of The Room, but also Tommy Wiseau and really anyone who wants to create and put themselves out there. And it's kind of ironic that Tommy Wiseau was so confident in himself and that he was going to make a film that people loved and that people cherished and that emotionally resonates with people. And in a way, he's kind of right, but just for completely different reasons. This guy took a chance to make this movie and it quite literally paid off. This is a fascinating story that was just begging to be adapted to a film, and I could not be happier with the result. Really, my only complaint with this movie is I think they could have done a better job at making Tommy a bit shorter, because in real life he is about 5 inches shorter than Greg Sestero, but in this film James Franco is about 4 inches taller than Dave Franco, and it just seems kind of odd in certain scenes, especially if you are a fan of The Room and you know that Tommy is significantly shorter than Greg Sestero. I mean, come on, if they can make Tom Hardy look imposing as Bane, I think they could do a little bit of movie magic with this. But that literally is the only problem that I have with this movie. The Disaster Artist is funny, it's insightful, but most of all, it has a huge heart at its core. This is a really surprisingly emotional film about creativity and exposure. If you haven't seen The Room, first of all, come on, you have to watch The Room. But if you do have an interest in seeing The Disaster Artist, I think it's almost required that you watch The Room before you see this film. I do think that you will still enjoy The Disaster Artist, but not to the potential that you should if you have seen The Room. Also, if you do want to see this movie, stay after because there is a post-credit scene and it is marvelous. So did you guys see The Disaster Artist? What did you think about it? Leave your thoughts and opinions down below. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you liked today's video. And if you did, click on the link down below and check out my channel, some more movies and related things. Guys, thank you so much for watching and see you next time.